Alright, what we have here is the LCD replacements for a Samsung Galaxy S8. This is good for the S8, the S8 Plus, the S9, S7, pretty much all of the Galaxies, the newer Galaxies. As you can see, you start by heating up the back. I'm going to kind of walk you through it a little bit. And this is in real time. This is not fast forward. I'm not going to skip anything. I think the end of the video cuts out basically when I put the screws back in, but for the most part, it's literally the entire repair. So, as you can see, as you're kind of working that heat gun around, you want to basically be able to touch it for about a second or two, tops, and you'll know when it's too hot. It's just instant. It's you can't keep your fingers on it like at all, like right there. Keep in mind, one of the big things that a lot of people don't talk about is how cold it is, how cold the environment is. That actually affects it pretty drastically. So, for instance, if you're doing this repair inside and someone has the AC on, that's going to drastically change how long you have to kind of keep that glass hot, so to speak. You'll see here in a moment. Generally, I go around for a couple of minutes. Try to work it evenly. Don't get too close. Don't stay in one spot too long, because what will end up happening is you will either heat it up obviously too much, and that can break it as soon as you put some pressure on it, or the underside, the black or the gold, whatever color it is, black in this instance, will actually bubble over, and it will no longer stick to the glass. So it just looks super bad, and the customer won't be happy, obviously. So as you can see, I'm about to stop there and see if I can get my iSesamo tool in there. You kind of hear a little right there, and then you're in. Obviously, you don't want to use that iSesamo all the way around. You only want to wedge the glass just a little bit, and then use your pick from there, obviously. And you'll kind of see here in a second, when I come back in frame, how easy that pick is moving up and down. And that's kind of what you want. If you have any resistance, you're going to want to stop, reheat. Patience is really key with this. I tell all my customers that, listen, this is the most time consuming part of this particular job. It's funny because they always want to watch you. So there we go, kind of working around. Again, just touching it. In this house, it was a little cold, and that's why I kind of had to, continue to heat it and reheat it and move that pick around. There you go, kind of touch it just for a second or two. Again, you'll kind of feel it. As far as if it's too hot, you won't even be able to keep your finger on it. You kind of want it to where you can put your finger on it, but not keep your finger on it. I guess that's the best way I can describe it without really showing you. Now, what I've noticed is on the S8s and the S8 Plus, in comparison to the S9, the S9 does have just a little more adhesive. Sorry for the bad camera view at times. Still getting used to kind of setting up on a mobile basis. This is something that we do in people's homes, and we're able to just literally set up right there on their kitchen table. But what that means for me and trying to record it is sometimes it's not the best angles and sometimes it's not the best recording, so I apologize. So you'll see here how easy that slides. That's what we're looking for. We don't want it, obviously there's going to be a little bit of pushback, or a little bit, it's going to be a little hard, but should be able to kind of move that freely, so to speak. And if not, grab that heat. Again, patience is a virtue with this particular part of the job, and you'll know it when you got it. I've cracked a couple of backs right around this particular time where you still have some of that adhesive up in the top corner and the rest of it's free, and if you don't heat it up enough, then it will just crack and shatter that hole back in, and then obviously my job is done, and the customer is super pissed at me. Doesn't happen too often, but it does. Alright, so you'll see that we were able to leave that original adhesive on there, which we will be reusing, and that's actually the part that I think is missing from the video. You're basically going to heat that back up, and generally a couple of minutes all the way around the parameter, and then stick that thing back on. I like to put it in the customer's case immediately after that. So here we go. We've got 48 screws we have to remove here. No, I'm just kidding. It's like 16, but nevertheless, it feels like 48. So the nice thing about Samsung is that they are all the same size, and you do not have to worry about those and what sequence they come out, unlike the Apples. And you can see right now they're not even coming out of that back plate. I'll come back through with my tweezers and grab the majority of those. And what you have on the back side there, if you don't know, is the NFC little mat, which is good for near frequency communication, where you're going to get your wireless charging, and also like Samsung Pay or Mobile Pay, we're able to tap the phone on the credit card machines, and that's what that little black mat is. And there we go with the tweezers. Again, they're all the same size, so you don't have to worry about that. It's kind of nice. And feel free to fast forward the video if you have already gone this far with a particular repair and you're looking for something specific. But again, this is just for the sake of kind of figuring out how long this should take, some of the key little points for someone that hasn't necessarily done the repair on the S7s, S8s, and S9s. Again, they're all pretty much identical depending on what part you get. The particular part that I have has the mid frame, so I'm going to disassemble the phone. So there's the fingerprint scanner, and just that one comes off super easy. And the NFC mat is attached to that first back plate there, and then that's your speaker down below. Careful, that thing shot right at my face. So I'm going to disconnect the battery, and then And we've got the front-facing cameras up there. And then the proximity sensor and ambient light sensor on the side over there. And move down to the LCD and digitizer. Little antennas. Alright, they're all free. Pull out the cameras. Alright. Keep in mind on those front-facing cameras, Samsung 8s are kind of known for a little glitch. There are a couple of ways that you can get past that glitch with those front-facing cameras. It's basically you go into the camera app and you go front-facing and it just either freezes or it goes black. You can go through the settings and actually clear out the presets, and that should fix that glitch. We have another 5 screws down below there, just a standard Phillips head. And same thing, those are all one size, so don't worry about it, but I generally keep those ones in order. Just an old habit, I guess. Those ones are going to be black screws on this particular job. On the S9, you'll find one screw holding the motherboard down at the top near the vibrator motor. So don't forget that. Pop that headphone jack out. And then what I like to do is detach those little antenna wires down at the bottom, but leave them plugged into the top motherboard. And I know it's kind of hard to see there, but you'll see them once you're this far into the job. And you just have to be careful with those ones. I like to use my plastic spudger. If you pull too hard, then you'll pull right off the motherboard. Take the motherboard out, set that aside, and don't really need to heat these things up, but you can if you want to. There's the vibrator motor. Just get some tweezers underneath there and that should come right off. And then your proximity sensor and ambient light sensor. And same thing, you could heat it up if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. And from there, we're going to go down and charge it. Be careful, there is, and you'll see it here in a moment, you don't want to just yank this out because there's a little antenna on the side there and it's underneath a little lip. And there is adhesive on it, so really I do recommend heating this part up. It makes it a lot easier to pull off, but you'll see the little lip once you're a little closer there. And on this particular one we do have to take the battery out, so I like to heat it up pretty much just at the bottom. Be super careful with the battery. Really, I like to use just plastic tools for this, but I've seen people use a number of different things like playing cards, their picks, iSesamo tool. I don't trust myself with iSesamo or a metal tool on the battery because I have sliced them open before. They're not like super hazardous. They definitely scare you, when they start smoking and heating up, and you can smell. It's a crazy like sulfur smell. Pretty much just don't do it. Just be super cautious here. And you'll see kind of what I do there is just grab just enough to get myself right underneath it, and I don't even really push too far, and then I grab a pick and I just make sure I'm under the battery, and then I go toward the side there, and boom, that way I know I'm good. I'm not seeing any smoke. It's not heating up abnormally. It comes right out. That honestly is one of the easier ones. One of the harder ones is the S7. S7 has a lot more adhesive. S9 is going to be about the same as the S8. And there's our new mid-frame and LCD. So we take off all the little plastic covers. And now we're ready for reassembly. You can see that really it's not that difficult. You know, I get a lot of people, this is honestly one of the more difficult jobs that we do, and just takes patience, you know, that's the biggest thing. So vibrator motor, and you can do this however you want. You can basically put the stuff down that you need to, like the vibrator motor, the proximity sensor, the charge port down below, those types of things. I just like to kind of pick it up as I go. So there we go. Now we're ready for the charge port. So pretty much get the charge port in. There's a little gasket around that. Everything else is going to kind of sit as it should. And then what you're going to need to do is, get the little antenna on the side there underneath that little lip that we were talking about earlier. And again, if you're this far into the job, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So the biggest thing with this down here is going to be the headphone jack. Likes to sit out just a little bit. You want to make sure that the ribbon connects, and then I like to give it like a good little push, and I normally hear it kind of click, and then I know it's in. However, you can just kind of screw it in, and it kind of pushes itself down into place, and you'll again see what I'm talking about if you're this far. So you're going to put the 5 screws back in. Remember, those are all the black ones.
I love Mama.
Baby, go back upstairs.
I love Mama up.
So my daughter came down to help us out here. Tell us that she lost her mom. Alright, so this is a good little part here. You want to really just line those up and just kind of give it a little pinch, and you'll feel it connect and hear it connect, and you're able to literally just lay that right back down into place. This is actually one of the biggest things I think a lot of people mess up on, is getting those 2 wires back into kind of the little channel. So it sits just underneath the top motherboard. They're tucked underneath that, and then you want to just run it down the channel. And I actually made a mistake here. Figured it out later, but that motherboard, or the LCD, did not connect to the motherboard as it should, and you'll kind of see here in a minute. This is what I like about Samsung, is that you have to make sure everything is exactly how it was before, or else it won't go back together. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. So just getting those wires back in. If those are out of place at all, then it's going to mess up basically everything, from here. So pretty much get those back into the channels. Try to remember, what goes on top, what goes on bottom. Again, if you don't put it back together exactly how it came apart, it will affect how the speaker actually lays. If you can get all the screws back in, things along those lines. So, and you'll see again what I'm talking about here in a minute. So this the motherboard was not down all the way, and when I went to plug in the LCD there, I didn't realize that it did not plug in like 100%. And I only say that to say this: when I tried to power the device on here in a minute, I don't know if you see it or not, but the phone worked, but the LCD didn't turn on. And I kind of felt it, and I'll kind of illustrate where I felt it. And you know, when you're doing a repair like this, you'll see when something isn't exactly flush. Don't push it. You know, that's my best advice for these Samsungs, really any Samsung. So right here is where you're going to kind of see it as you're trying to pop those back into place. You do need to put quite a bit of pressure on it, and you'll see it kind of, or you'll feel it and hear it pop down. However, this should have been my first indication was here when I was putting that screw back in. The first one, you'll see here, it actually does not go in flush. You won't be able to see it from this angle, but I can tell you that it did not go in flush. It went in just off by a hair, and I kind of forced it. And as you can see there, I'm kind of pushing a little bit, like, it doesn't make too much sense. So anyway, I continue. And really, you know, when you're not paying attention to the small little details, it makes more work for you in the long run. And that's really the biggest thing that I've noticed. When you know something is wrong, like right there, see it kind of popped up. And what that actually was, I didn't check, it was the LCD coming off of its connection, because everything was off by just a little hair from down below, and it just pushed it up. And it's just funny. It's funny to see it. So pretty much you're going to see me put all the screws back in, but you're not going to see me reheat the back and put that back on. So once you're this far and you've got all the screws in, you can generally turn it over once the back plate is back on and test it. Just power it up without the back glass on. And then once you're confident that everything is working proper, then heat up, obviously put in the remainder of the screws, and then heat up the back glass like I mentioned before. Generally, a couple of minutes. Really, what I like to do with that is put the heat directly on the glue, and just kind of make sure that it's sticking to the finger, and then you'll be good to go. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.